spent $28 on that thing.
On everything, or just the little tripod?
Just a little tripod. The XLR connectors, that was another $40.
What?
Hey, welcome everybody to the B Shifter Podcast. Grant's going to derail me because I went to Best Buy and bought some supplies for today. I want to welcome you today. John Vance along with Steve Lester and Grant Light. And we are in Charlottesville, Virginia. We're here doing a Blue Card Train the Trainer. So we've been here all week and recording some podcasts. And it's been an awesome week with you guys. I've really enjoyed it. How are you guys doing today?
Very good.
Yeah.
Great.
It was a good day at class today. It was a really good day.
Yeah, I felt it was too. A really great group here. You know, this is an old city, as we said in the last time. It's where Dave Matthews is from, so we got to check out the bar that he started playing in.
He wasn't there.
Of course, yeah. We asked the question, when's Dave Matthews playing? She said every Monday. They happen to be closed every Monday, so I don't think we're going to see Dave Matthews while we're here. Hey, we want to remind everybody once again, as we always have, about the Hazard Zone Conference. It kicks off on the pre-conference on September 30th, and then we have October 3rd and 4th, the General Conference. It's in Sharonville, Ohio, at the Sharonville Convention Center. We have spots today. As of now, I think we're going to have around 120 spots left, and they're going quick. So get registered. Go to hazardzonebc.com. Both these guys are going to have classes there, and then we're also doing a B Shifter Live. So we'll have a B Shifter podcast.
That'll be fun.
That's our general session. Hopefully you guys will be involved in that.
Maybe.
Be able to, be up on stage with us, and we'll ask questions and get answers. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So join us in Cincinnati, Ohio this fall. hazardzonebc.com. So today's topic, we want to talk about training on all three levels. And when we start talking about training on all three levels, we're talking about task, tactical, and strategic. And we're always telling folks you need to integrate Blue Card into every level of training within your department. And if that's the case, I wanted to get some perspectives from you two, because Steve, as a division chief of training, and then Grant, who led a company of, I'm going to call them hot shots, because
they'd be glad to hear that.
They were when you're on a rescue company in a city like Cincinnati, you are an elite firefighter. So how you do that, and then some of the training you also go out and provide at the task level, and some of the tactical level training that you're giving as well. So, to start off with, how do you as a division chief of training try to weave Blue Card into your training on a regular basis?
Well, we start that out at the academy level. When folks come in right off the street into the fire academy, we start indoctrinating that into our training. When we do hose advancement or ventilation type training or anything like that, we always try to incorporate with our young recruits. Hey, make sure that you receive the order from your officer to do that, and your officer is going to be receiving that from command, and that'll be in the form of a task location objective, or TLO as we like to teach. So we incorporate that on a regular basis in all of our classroom instruction, as well as out on the training ground. When we do simulations like forcible entry doors or our ventilation simulator or anything like that.
How do you incorporate the other chiefs into that? Because that's one of the missing pieces that we see at a lot of departments, where the crews will train, and we also get some company officer training. But how do we get the chief training, even on the recruit level?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Well, I think if you're going to get battalion chiefs from the field to come in and participate in recruit training, you're going to have to require it. Which is unfortunate, but that is something we have to do. I know we typically don't do that in my organization, but it would be nice if we did. I think that would really help things out. It would give the recruit a good perspective of the leadership of our department.
What about just ongoing training? How do you incorporate the strategic level?
Continuing education, we incorporate the battalion chiefs or our incident commanders basically in our company drills or our multi-company drills that we do. Prior to the past 12 months, at my agency, we used to do a spring drill and a fall drill where we would have companies come down, we would give them a scenario, and then the on-duty battalion chief was involved in that scenario and would run command and would run a hot wash or whatever needed to be done after that. This of course, the drill would be preloaded. You know, they would kind of know what to expect. Then they would perform the drill, and then they would do a critique afterwards.
You guys are both from larger systems, way bigger systems than I'm from. And I think what I'm seeing at my level a lot of times is chiefs that never train with the tactical and task level, but yet then they show up to big incidents or even regular incidents, try to take command, and they are out of the loop. They are completely on a different page than everybody else. The captains are doing a great job, but if it's a system without battalion chiefs, like some small 2-3 station departments that haven't begun to staff battalion chief positions, and there's a lot of those departments out there, guys. Those staff chiefs don't participate in training, and I know there's only so many hours in the day, and I'm not trying to shame them into training because. Although I kind of am, but because they have a lot of other important things to do. I mean, you're providing for getting the funding for your organization and providing all the administrative support, but and because a lot of times out of necessity, they are the ones responding to the calls. And I you know the one of the reasons I bring it up is because in my region, which out of however many cities there are, 740 or whatever, there were only like 6 or 7 cities at one time with battalion chiefs, and now that's flipping. Now people are adding battalion chiefs because those staff level officers, number one, don't have the time to do it. They also see that there's a strategic advantage by getting a chief there faster, and we identify that with Blue Card. We want that in the first 6 to 7 minutes after the first arrival. So now that is happening. And it might be one of those things to further justify having that battalion chief position. So that's kind of the perspective I was asking that.
I find it interesting when you say, I mean, I totally understand what you're talking about, that they have another level that they have to worry about, that a person on a line doesn't have to worry about, and that's funding and all that stuff. But if in the end, or even in, I don't want to say the end, but if their real job is that they are going to respond and run a fire, and they're not up on that, that's the most dangerous thing we do, right? That's the IDLH, intermittently dangerous to life and health. So yes, they need to be good at getting the money and dealing with the council members and all that. But if they're not good at the one thing that they really need to be good at, which is keeping their people safe, that's kind of a sad state of affairs.
And I think that speaks to the credibility of the Blue Card IC certification program. I mean, if a department requires its BCs or just its incident commanders, whatever rank that is, to be Blue Card certified, then they're required to do continuing education in order to maintain that certification.
Right.
So while that may not be optimal as far as training, you know, because we want them to do more training than what's just required to be recertified, at least there's something there. In order to maintain that certification, they have to do, whether it's computer CEs and interact with the online modules, or going to do some CE credit, you know, whether it's a Blue Card workshop or just doing some CEs at their local command training center, you know. But even so, I guess what I'm saying is a sort of that shows how good certification can be for a department.
Right, because at least then there's some criteria to keep things up. And you could tell a difference. There's departments where they are truly keeping up on those CEs, and the ICs show up and they know what's going on because they've obviously also trained with their troops. There's a flip side of that where those captains are getting things going, and incidents going great. The chief shows up and it's the old chaos. You know, chief has arrived on scene, and it goes to crap because that chief does not train with the troops, and it's painfully obvious when they show up. And I've even said to a couple of chiefs before, maybe it'd be better if you didn't go and just let a neighboring department with a battalion chief or chiefs that do train take the incident. I mean, as hard as that is, you know, for egos to hear, if you don't have time to keep your skills up on that operational level because your administration stuff is so busy, maybe you shouldn't be going on calls. But I know that's easier said than done.
You know, and I give some props to the Charlottesville Fire Department. I mean, here this week, I mean, these guys have been on it.
Oh, yeah.
It is very obvious that they train. They train for incident command on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have departments in this class that have just started Blue Card, right? So then they're taking the same instructor class as the Charlottesville people, and nothing against them, but you can see the big difference.
Absolutely.
You can see, and they'll get there because they just started doing it, but they'll get there. But you can see the Charlottesville guys are on point, and it's nice to see.
Well, and I've been a complete fire buff since I walked into this place because it's it's a station with 2 engines, a ladder, a medic, a tiller ladder. Oh yeah, it's like and
he has been buffing.
Oh yeah, I've been buff. Yeah, every time they get a call, I'm running down to the bay trying to take video of them pulling out. But the other thing is what's impressive is. You walk into a department like this, and I know this is a little off topic, but they are so respectful of their retirees. There have been 2 different retirees plus a retirement party since we've been here. And these guys, the other day, a retiree came in, the crew dropped what they were doing, they brought him upstairs, they had coffee with them, sat around the table, listened to the old stories. And then the other day they had a send off for one of their guys, and they told me about it. And then I saw what they did on social media, and it was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Also the bunting. I mean,
oh yeah,
I've never seen that. They had a retiree pass away, and they had bunting up on the firehouse.
Yeah. And usually most organizations are so out of touch with the retirees, they don't do any of that. So, there's a lot of departments that say, and that they had an acronym, and I think family's in the acronym somewhere. The fire, they had a fire acronym, and family was first. And there's a lot of departments that say that, but it's just a word on the fire engine or a word on, and it seems like this place they do it because and then you watch, get back to topic, how they're training.
Yeah.
Everyone from the recruits here on up to the captains that are on the rig, and the chiefs have been in training all week. I mean, these battalion, they're every day that we've been training, their battalion chiefs are in the training session with us.
Yep.
Hanging out, and again, that's very impressive.
And I think we mentioned it this morning. Their day room, or what we would call it, I think is labeled as the lounge in the firehouse, but it's a room full of recliners. We have yet to see a single firefighter in one of those recliners while we've been in class during the day, which has been like 8:30 to 4:30 every day.
Yeah,
we have not seen a single firefighter in one of those recliners. They're always doing something.
No one's riding a lazy boy here.
That's right.
At least during daylight hours. So yeah, it's impressive. So going back to that, how do you create that kind of culture, guys? I mean, how does that happen?
It starts at the top. It's got to start with the fire chief. The fire chief has to help influence that culture, and
And the guys all the way down.
Yeah.
If you bring in a new person and this is all they see, that they're doing training and they're doing this and working out. We've seen people working out every morning.
Yep.
And all that. Then that's just the way it is, right? And that's really refreshing to see here. It's front and center.
Right. I think it starts with a fire chief. It starts with recruit training. From my perspective as the chief of training for my agency, you have to set that expectation as soon as they come in the door that, hey, this is, there's never an end to the journey. The journey is continuous all the way till the day you walk out the door,
right?
Into retirement, and you have to set that culture from the very beginning. If you don't, then we know what results from that.
And we always used to say, if you're done training, then it's time to retire.
Yeah.
If you know it all, it's time to leave. So back to let's get back to the strategic level real quick and talk about chief training, and then we'll step it down. What other components are there for chiefs training, both with Blue Card and how to integrate with the rest of the companies and what they're doing? So once we get on the scene and things operate smooth that way, how else do you see this work?
I think I can only speak from my perspective, and like you said, I work for a pretty large agency, but we have our own command training center where we can bring battalion chiefs down and put them through scenarios. We can run sims. We can even bring down company officers and put them in the cab of an engine, and give them a scenario. We have an engine that's inside our command training center, or a cab, I should say. And but I think you just have to set that tone of this is a continuous journey, and that you're going to train and simulate every year or twice a year or whatever that looks like. Set up a schedule. Currently we don't require anything like that in my agency. It's typically up to the battalion chief and how he feels and what he wants to do for his particular battalion. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I know I felt like my battalion, when I was a battalion chief, had certain needs that maybe another battalion didn't. And I think it's a good thing that we give our battalion chiefs the liberty to see the problems or the adjustments that need to be made within their own battalion, and they can do that. They can come up with their own training plan instead of just depending on whatever canned information that the training division sends out.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I also think a lot of times if you can get battalion chiefs to lead some of the training,
Exactly, yes.
and because they should be the moral and spiritual leader of the folks on their shift, and
Right.
lead by example, whether that's getting out and working out with them or leading training out on the fire ground, but as often as they can, because at the end of the day they're going to be the ones to hold people accountable, right? Whether or not they're following
Yep.
the department policy, procedures, and practices, and making sure that people are actually carrying things out the way that we train.
And they really should carry the responsibility of bringing up those next chief officers behind them, those company officers within their battalion who are going to be testing for battalion chief or looking to move up in the next few years. They're the ones that they should be taking by the hand and really helping with their incident command techniques and how to think strategically and giving them examples and simulations and stuff like that.
Yeah, their general leadership too. Like,
Right.
you a lot of times the good people gravitate to the good people, right? So there's some of those company officers may have made it so that they could get in that district because they wanted to work for that guy. When you have a good district chief and you want to move up and emulate somebody, you find the good person and you make your way there and say, like, I got to keep my eye on this guy because I want to be him. I want to be like him.
It's very true.
Grant, and since you're hitting on that, how do you affect things on the company level to not only integrate Blue Card and other things, but how do you get things down to the task level when you're doing company level training?
Well, I'll answer that, but let me say this. I found it interesting. The Cincinnati Fire Department's got a recruit class going on now. It's about to end. But one thing that they did and they have not done in the past is that everybody's getting younger, right? The department's getting way younger. We're bringing up new officers, all that kind of stuff. Tons of people are retiring. And one thing they did in this recruit class is, as when they got done with their the requirement to get to firefighter 2, then they do another 6 weeks of kind of the Cincinnati way. Here's how IFSA says you got to do it. Well, this is how we do it, kind of thing. And that usually allows for a lot more burns and all that kind of stuff. Practice fires. And so they have brought down company officers to be in charge of a company of recruits at all these burns. So they're getting those company officers who are newer and, who knows how much experience they had, right? Everybody's experience is getting less and less. There's less and less fires, but they're giving them the opportunity to be in charge of that group of recruits and then run them through the fire scenarios they're doing. And I heard that the other day from a friend of mine who was down helping out doing the recruit stuff, and I thought that's a great idea. Right? It's just, they know they're fake burns, they know all that kind of stuff, but they're still getting the reps, running a company of recruits, which you really have to watch even closer, right?
Right.
Make sure they do the right things, and then they're following the program. But I just thought it was a really good idea that they come up with to give them some reps, right? To give them some time. And again, it's not like going to a real house art, but it is, right? And you still have fire, and you still got to get the hose line there, and you got to take a group of people, which, even though we have, companies have normal assigned people, we always got people detailed in who you don't know, right? Somebody walks in the door and everybody looks like, I have no clue who that is. But they're on the fire department. They're just usually on another unit, on another company, and so you learn to be good at bringing them up to speed. And I just thought that was a really good idea that they came up with to help out the younger officers they have to make them better.
Yeah, that's great. You know, we do we don't do practical exercises like that, but we have certain requirements for promotion. We have in-house classes that people have to attend that are all about leadership development and that whole tactical task or whole tactical and strategical level. Like even starting at the engineer's rank, when you go to be promoted to engineer, you take a class called Acting Officer in Charge. It's an in-house department class. And that kind of starts that journey into managing a company. And then when you want to make lieutenant, you have to come back and take Fire Officer 1 and Fire Instructor 1. Both of those are NPQ and certifications. And then from lieutenant to captain goes Fire Officer 2 and Instructor 2. So when we just kind of keep building, we're hoping to even have some classes that we could require between captain and battalion chief, hopefully. But that's just kind of we call it our career development and program.
That's a great.
Yeah.
So I think so often people expect officers just to get their training through osmosis and just by being around other officers. And I'm not just talking about Blue Card. I mean, I think that's an essential piece of this, but everything else that happens on the department. We were talking to Frank Lieb a few weeks ago, and he's talking about if you're going to be a lieutenant, it's 6 weeks of training. You're off the line, and you get 6 weeks of training. If you're going to be a captain, you're off the line. You get 6 more weeks of training. When you go to battalion chief, 6 more weeks of training, and I believe district chief was another 6 weeks of training. So they're preparing you for every step along the way. They have a lot of policies and procedures at the FDNY that I'm sure are very unique to them. Right. It's a very unique city, very unique place. But it seems to work very well for them. And I would say that's probably a gold standard. And if a lot of folks aren't able to afford to do that because of staffing and other reasons. But man, if you could pull somebody off for a week, you're doing better than there's a department in Minnesota, Bloomington Fire Department, just promoted 9 captains. They're a new. When I say new, they're new to the career end of things, and they pulled all the captains off for a week and put them on a 40-hour week, and they came in and trained for a week before they went back out to the field as a captain. So even a little is better than nothing. Mm-hmm. So back to the training on integrating Blue Card. What other ways can we integrate Blue Card in our normal training that we do as firefighters?
Well, I mean, of course, and you've heard me talk about this several times, John, is battalion level training. Battalion drilling. You've got to have those. You got to have those battalion drills. Bring a few companies down to the tower. Come up with a scenario. Utilize Blue Card from the very beginning. Initial IC gets there. He gives his initial radio report. He walks around the tower. He gives his follow-up report. He makes his 3 assignments: task, location, objective. Chief gets there, does the command transfer. Everything right down. You can even integrate strategic shifts. You can integrate maydays into that drilling, whatever that looks like. I think that has to be done minimum of twice a year. Minimum.
So pull them away from the iPads, doing it real life at your drill tower.
Yes. Pulling lines off of engines, forcing props,
right.
Cutting vent props, whatever that looks like. VES and, bedroom windows, whatever that looks like in your jurisdiction. But yeah.
I think that's good. Because one thing that we always talk about when we're teaching the trainers and all that in Blue Card is that it's very compressed, right? So you do your initial radio report, and then 27 seconds later, whatever it is, you're doing your follow-up report.
Right.
But in real life, that's way expanded out because you got time to do your 360, which means you got time to think about what you want to say, and you look at the building and make these decisions. And I think doing that where they have a more realistic time frame to do it in probably calms a lot of people about it, because I think in the train the trainer or just in a sim lab, you're pushed so fast that I think it freaks some people out. Like they get so nervous about it because it's only a couple seconds, and now do your follow-up report.
Yeah.
Now do this. Now assign a company. And I think in the real life scenario where you're doing all those other things, they realize, like, I got some time here.
Yeah.
Right? I got to make a decision, but I got some time to make this decision.
Yeah, it puts everything in real time, and I think also it allows, I think it's easier for a company officer or an acting officer to absorb the information on their walk around when they're really walking around it versus a couple of seconds of each side of a building on an iPad. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it helps put everything in perspective. And I typically, when I ran a battalion drill as a battalion chief, I would stand out there and watch the guys as they came in and did the task. If it was pulling up, establishing a water supply or pulling a hand line off and advancing, I would stay out there and watch because I wanted to see them. That's my job as a battalion chief, is to evaluate my people. And then when it got time, I would just do the command transfer and I would just keep it and run it. And I would run it from the picnic table, right there on the training ground or whatever that looked like.
Well, so when you do that kind of drill, is it one drill? Is it a half-hour evolution? Is it 1 hour? What kind of time frame? And
typically, I would bring the companies down twice a year, but when we came down, it was for 4 to 6 hours at a time.
Oh, okay. So
we would run multiple scenarios. We would preload it somewhat. I didn't want to give away every detail. We would preload it to a certain extent. Then we would run the drill. Then we would hot wash the drill, and then we would reload everything and do it again.
And just move people around. You're now first,
exactly.
and
Yes, perfect. Yes, and we might change up the scenario in between companies, because we want to keep it realistic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's been your experience with that kind of stuff? Have you done anything like that, Grant?
Well, when we first started Blue Card, my district chief he was all about it, and so we went down and basically did exactly what you did. Just ran everybody through, and this got everybody to do all the the initial report, follow report, the signing companies, that kind of stuff, to get everybody on the page, because just like everywhere else, not everybody on the company or in the fire department gets Blue Card all at once. So magically, one morning everybody wakes up like, boom, I've done it.
Right.
It's a progression, and if you get the people on the front end that do it first, and then we haven't turned it on, then they start to forget what they're about. It's like you got to find this middle ground where all of a sudden you just go, okay, we're turning it on.
Right.
And so doing that with him kind of got everybody who hadn't been through the process yet down to the firefighter level as well, that weren't going to go through it. At least they now really kind of understood. They saw it,
sure,
as opposed to you coming back, or somebody coming back from a class going, oh, we did this thing today, and they try to explain it, and it's like, okay. But then when they live do it in a real scenario, just at the drill center, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on.
Right.
Here. It's not the end of the world.
It gets your people comfortable with you, and it gets you comfortable with your people as a battalion chief. The people become comfortable listening to you on the radio. They understand how you give orders, how you give assignments. It helps explain your way of thinking when you can run a drill and then sit back and talk about it. Also, just to cap onto that is, it's good for a battalion chief to allow those company officers that are going to be riding up. In my agency, it's the captains. It's a good opportunity for them to take the role of IC and give them some sets and reps in that strategic role as well, which is very important because I like to take off. And when I take off, I want to know that my captains are ready to do my job and ride up in my place. So that's very important as well.
Yeah. And when we get to the task level, what kind of things have you done on the task level to integrate Blue Card training, especially when it comes to the tactic? Because when we're in a Blue Card class, and you do this maybe even outside your company level, but we definitely do it on the task level. When we do Blue Card, we say this isn't a tactics class.
Right. It's not.
Because it's not. And if you let it, it will be. Yeah. So we've got to keep it a command and a decision-making class. So what kind of things can we do on the tactical level that's going to make us better decision makers?
All right, so one thing that we've done in our county, there's a group of people that kind of came together and said we need to try to push the county forward a little bit and just general overall knowledge of what's going on. It wasn't a knock on any chief or any department, whatever, but there was a group of people that just kind of got together and said, I'm willing to do it for free, he's willing to do it, let's just start putting together some classes and see what happens. And they've taken off. So one of the classes we've done is just a thermal imaging class, and that seems to be like, oh, well, just thermal imaging. But the problem we realized was, number one, a lot of departments would go get a thermal imager and they would say, hey, here's our new thermal imager. Wow, that's nice. Yep. okay, I got to go deliver the one to the next place, and that was it. And we thought about it and we're like, okay, well, when they come in, they say, hey, here's a new monitor, LifePak 37 monitor. That's like, oh, the EMS is going to come by, the EMS training guy is going to come by. You're going to get tested on it. You got to be able to run it, turn it on, flippity floppity, do that, put on pads, make it all work, do everything. But when it's a thermal imager you're going to use in this fire, they go, here you go, here's your thermal imager. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
And so we realized that was a problem, a hole, a training hole. So we put together a thermal imaging class, and it wasn't some crazy, amazing thing. It's like what it was we went in, we had like 5 different stations, and we went in and just gave them the opportunity to sit and actually look at a thermal imager, look at a fire or heat waves or this or that through a thermal imager.
Sure.
Not with no pressure that you're on a fire and you got to move and you got to move. Like, you're just going to sit down here and I'm going to point out things, and then you're going to look at them on thermal imager and go like, oh, okay. Here's when people talk about the thermal wave, like this, or where the heat waves are coming from is where the fire is. They just could sit and do it for like we did. I think it was like 12 minutes cycles. So we didn't want to go over that. And so they came out, and then we had to talk about, did you see what we were talking about? Okay, yeah. Now go over to that station. They're going to show you a different thing with the thermal imager. And like I said, it wasn't hard. It wasn't that, but it just gave these company officers time to just sit and look at the thing.
Yeah.
Other than I'm looking at the stove, and I'm looking at the grill behind the firehouse, which is unrealistic. Yeah. And so, and people loved it. I mean, the reviews or the feedback was incredible, and it was like, it wasn't some crazy ass class. It was just the opportunity with someone to kind of coach them as to what they're looking at, and then they went to another station and they could just sit and look at stuff, and I think the takeaway of that was great.
Sure.
And so, was that a tactics class? Not really, but it was, you got this tool that we are in the blue card side where you saying, hey, you can use it as a when you're doing your 360, you can look at this. And so that was one of the stations, like in broad daylight, they went around with these and they put them in survey mode, and they said like, oh, wow, you can really see the heat on this building, and you can use this. You feel like you need to use it at night if you're using it for like your 360, but in broad daylight you're using it and you're seeing things that your eyes can't see. And so it was kind of a just a aha moment for a lot of people. And so was that a big, huge to do? Not really. Was that? But it just gave those people the opportunity to just use that tool. Right. And I think that was something we so that same group put together. And you said it, a decision-making class. And so that really went over well, because we basically, that was the other end of the stick, because that was a lot of work, because we had to make these scenarios, and basically the scenario, there was always a big lead in, and then there was a scenario that they had to work their way through, and there was always somewhere in that scenario just an oddball left turn. And so what were they going to decide to do? It just put them in a position where they had to make a decision. We're not saying it was you could make the right or the wrong decision. We all had an idea what we thought was the right decision, but we didn't yell at them. We didn't say you were stupid, you should have done this. When it was over, they worked their way through the problem, and then we would just take them aside, no one else there. This was all like one-on-one. Not like in front of anybody, like, hey, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Could you have thought this might have been a better way to go? Because, did you think about this choice? And it was like, I never thought of that. Well, here's why this might have been a better choice. But it was just kind of giving them the opportunity to make mistakes and to force them into a decision. And that turned out to be a really good class. But the problem, I don't say a problem, but we had 6 stations, so we're only doing 6 people. And every 2 hours, and so it took 20 people to make it work. So it took 20 people to teach 6 people. Yeah. And it just was a lot of work. But and really, I think everybody there volunteered their time, thought it was great, for our county, great for new officers, and so it wasn't a big deal. Like I didn't have anything to do, so I'll go do that. Yeah, kind of thing. It's turned out to be really good. And so those kind of classes, I think, aren't blue card classes, but blue card, I think, especially the first in company officer, makes them have to think a lot, right? And I always laugh when people go, oh, it's a Mother May I thing. It's like, it is put a lot of weight on that first in company officer thing. Definitely. I mean, 100%. And so, yes, the Blue Card program has them making big decisions, right? And assigning companies and all that, right? And so now we're helping them learn how to make those decisions. Yeah. So is that a Blue Card class? No, but is it helping you when you do make a run and so you're better at making decisions? I think that's a huge deal.
Sure. And, I'll just tag on to that. I think exactly what Grant's talking about, with the hands-on training and stuff. I think that right there goes to show you, like you look at the participation level and the desire for hands-on training. Look at the blossoming of these micro conferences that have occurred all over the country. I've been involved in the Metro Atlanta Firefighters Conference, or MAFC. I've been involved with that for almost 10 years now. And, our hands-on training portion that we do for that little conference it sells out every year. Guys are starving for practical training out there. And I thought it was a good testament last year when we brought back the Hazard Zone Conference. I'm not sure exactly what the attendance was. I'm sure you probably know,
500.
John. Yeah. I mean, that right there goes to show you as well that people are starving for command training as well.
Yeah. And we're heading towards 7. I think it's going to be... If it was a micro conference, it's not going to be micro for long.
Well, I think the term micro conference is pretty much everything but FDIC.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, and any conference is good
right.
to go out and get good ideas or new ideas and expose yourself to stuff, but. Those hands-on opportunities, because in communities, it's harder and harder. I know where I live, where we used to be able to acquire structures and do burns and stuff, between being NFPA compliant and EPA compliant, and then the city always has some, requirements and stuff. It's harder and harder. We participate in a regional burn facility, but we've got to have coverage, and because it's not in our city, we can't burn in our city. So, any opportunity, I think, to get hands-on and stretch lines and actually put water on real fire.
Staffing levels play huge into that all over the country. Yeah. We're all suffering from decreased staffing and those types of issues, and we can't just allow guys to come off the apparatus for 8 hours and go take a training class. Because we got to have, unfortunately, we got to have butts in seats.
I'm always jealous of those departments like Phoenix, where it's like, okay, we're going to put engine 11, engine 12, and engine 18 out of service for the next 3 hours, and they actually have companies within their system that can cover that. A lot of us don't. So if we're out of service, we're out of service. Or in my case, now it's another city has to cover us if we're going out of service. So to have those opportunities is great. Anything else we're missing here on integrating Blue Card or some? You guys have had some fantastic ideas, I think, and really given me some things to think about.
I think there again, the leadership has to support it.
Right. Starts at the top.
Starts at the top. The leadership has to support it. It's like I said in our previous podcast. Instead of asking why, ask why not.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. The fire chief's got to support his staff. His staff has to support the battalion chiefs. The battalion chiefs have to support their officers, and the officers have to support the firefighters all the way down. And it's just a top-down type of situation where if the support's not there, then it's going to be hard to make it happen.
It falls off.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You say the micro conferences, and just about anything that I know friends of mine are working on, being a part of a training thing, they always seem like they're full. They're always, and I think there's a lot of those new people don't like to do this, and those new guys don't like to do this, and is that just grumpy old fireman guys saying that? Because it seems like when I deal with these new people, they're out at getting training, and they're out getting involved, and they're out doing stuff. They may have a different way of doing it, and sometimes you might say put the phone down, but you got to say that to old people too. Everybody's playing with their phones. It's nothing. It's not. It's universal. But I think the desire of these people to want to learn, right, to go out there and seek out training and find it, I think it's great. I think there's some people think there's no hope for the fire service. Oh, it's tons of hope out there. It's gonna roll along. It's gonna be just fine, right?
Absolutely.
They may be better than us. I hope they are.
Absolutely.
All right, today's Timeless Tactical Truth from Alan Brunacini. Who shows up is critical.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So we're talking today about preparing people to show up and do a good job. And who's responsible for making sure that people who are prepared in these critical roles show up?
Well, when it comes to the first due, it's the company officer who's responsible. It's the company officer who's responsible to make sure that his firefighters are well trained at the task level and can get the job done. And beyond that, to make sure that the company officer is
The district chief.
making the right tactics would be
Right.
the battalion or the district chief or whoever is over that company officer, and so on and so forth.
All right, gents. Thanks so much for being on the podcast today. It's been a blast being with you in Charlottesville,
Oh, it's
Virginia.
been great.
Yeah, I
I love
really
your
enjoyed
little
it.
table. It's
Yeah.
lovely.
Well, these rooms that we got, I mean, they're amazing.
It's like a kitchen almost.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to whip up a whole meal behind us after the podcast. So, hey, thanks so much for watching or listening to the B Shifter podcast. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks.